How can I find related texts with my prescribed texts? Yeah, good question. So let's talk about related texts. All right, related texts for the common module for text and human experiences usually aren't used in an assessment as a comparison with the prescribed text. Normally, an assessment doesn't want you to directly compare them, but some do. I've seen both, right? Comparisons are not really the focus of the common module because, especially if you're doing advanced, you have a comparative study in Module A, textual conversations. I'll try and address it from both angles, right? So, assuming you don't have to do a direct comparison, when you're thinking about a related text, the first thing you want to think about is what text do I know or am I familiar with or can I find that at least has something to do with the core aspects of the rubric? Like, what are some texts I can think about that, just like my prescribed text, also explore an inconsistency in the human experience or inconsistent human emotions or a paradox or that explore corrupt motivations or something like that. Obviously, every text is about human experiences. So it's a bit of a tough one. But if I'm thinking about a related text in practical terms, I'm thinking about ones that will work well with the rubric. So you have to be familiar with that rubric. You want to find one that hits a lot of those points because I've seen a lot of assessments that will actually require you to link the rubric directly to the key terms of the module. So if you're doing the crucible, you're thinking about, okay, there's oppression going on there. There is a lot of hysteria. There's paranoia. And people, aren't able to determine what's true and they aren't able to speak the truth because then they'll be isolated from the community. And, basically there's just this gross violation of truth and justice. So that's what that text is about. So if you're doing the crucible, it's about injustice. It's about the truth being kind of outlawed almost, and people being isolated for standing up for the truth and being killed ultimately. So if you then wanted a related text for that, it doesn't have to be about the same thing. That's what I've been trying to say. It doesn't have to be about the same thing. You could choose something else. Like I think one we once did was Of Mice and Men. Of Mice and Men. So that's a short story. Okay, very short story, short book, easy to read. Always try and use shorter text if you're not a big reader. Obviously, don't pick a related text that's going to take you weeks, maybe months to get through. That text wasn't about the same thing as The Crucible. It wasn't about the same thing as 1984. It was about its own thing, right? It was about the Great Depression set in America, 1930s or something like that. And it explored its own themes of like friendship and aspirations to achieve the American dream and build a house and have a successful working life, etc. Now that text doesn't have anything to do with the plot of the other ones, and that's okay. But what the student did really well with that text is they connected it to all of those rubric terms really well. So they were able to link the characters to the emotions, to the individual human experiences that they were going through. They were able to say and articulate pretty well what any anomalies were. An anomaly is like something or someone unusual, different from the norm. So who was the anomaly in the story and why? And did anything unusual happen in the story? And almost always the answer is yes. Find out what that is and then make sure you use the word anomaly when you explain it. So it's more about connecting the related text. It's more about finding something that can connect well with those key terms of the rubric. So anomalies, paradoxes, inconsistencies, human motivations and behaviors. It's all on that module description on the NESA site, right? I'm sure a lot of you have looked at it in class. That's what a good related text is. I'll tell you what I'd be looking for as well with a related. I've already said one of the things, a shorter text. I don't want to read a really long book, especially if I'm already studying a book or a prose fiction novel. That's the first thing. The second thing is don't choose a related text that is of the same form as your prescribed text. So if you're doing The Crucible, which is a play, don't choose another play. Choose a different text type. Choose a film. Choose a novella, right? It could be maybe a short animation. Maybe it's a graphic novel. But don't choose a text that is the same text type or form as your prescribed text, because you're not then able to show the marker a diversity of technical skill. You can't show them that you know a broader set of techniques and you know how to handle text of different nature. So if you want to be able to impress the marker, basically. So don't limit yourself by choosing the same text type. So your related text has to be of a different form to the prescribed text. Choose a short text Poems are always good. And make sure that if you go and look at the module description, the rubric for text and human experiences on the NESA site, make sure you can draw clear links between your text and that one. Unless the assessment that you get this term with the related text explicitly, which means clearly asks you to compare the two texts, then all you have to do is be able to say, here's another example of a text that explores human experiences, and here's how it does so. And you do the same analysis and you connect it back to the module. Okay, so that's how you should think about it. The third thing to note with related texts is that related texts are not relevant for your trials or your final HSE. So related texts will only be relevant, I should say almost always, related texts will only be relevant in the first assessment on the common module. Then you get rid of the related text, and a lot of students struggle with this. They forget to update their draft essay because their draft essay had one paragraph on a related text and two paragraphs on a prescribed text, but they didn't they didn't substitute out the third paragraph on the related text for another paragraph on the prescribed text. So remember to update your draft after you do that first assessment with the related text.